Let's come back home to the Convention on Business Integrity here in Nigeria when it was launched in Lagos in 1997, as Nigeria went through a surge in corruption. 3 years earlier, the failed bank decree of 1994 hit the banking sector real hard because of unethical issues and other malpractices which were brought to the fore. More than 20 years on, let's revisit those principles of the Convention on Business Integrity as we turn to Soji Apampa, who was there in 1997 and is still there today. He's the co-founder and CEO at the Convention on Business Integrity. Good evening, sir. It's good to see you again coming through on the show.
Good evening, and thanks for inviting me.
I remember very vividly in 1997 at the Muson Center as a very young reporter back then, one of the nation's television, when I reported on your business integrity when it was launched on this particular day. It seems to me just like yesterday. As a very young reporter back then and a TV journalist, I remember asking questions about business integrity, anti-corruption, transparency and accountability. Why did you launch the Convention on Business Integrity? And that vision and focus, is it still relevant today, about 25, 26 years on?
Well, the reason why we had to launch the Convention on Business Integrity in those days was because people only saw themselves as serving the government, especially business. They saw government as their primary market, but they didn't realize how big a market there was out there if only they would be more compliant and they would take the issues of integrity more seriously. So this was part of what drove us. And we felt that, yes, Nigeria, we were talking about human rights at the time, but perhaps the reason why people's rights were being abused was because they were trying to expose corruption. So really, in all facets of life in Nigeria, business integrity was the issue, and even in business, business integrity was the issue.
Looking back at
it hasn't changed today, by the way.
So let's look back at the business and governance landscape. I just asked the question, what has changed in terms of integrity, transparency, and all that, even since 1999, when we talk about civilian democracy? Soji?
Okay, what has changed is that, first off, it has become a front burner issue. Before, talking about corruption, it was the C word as far as the World Bank was concerned. So even multilateral institutions would not write the word corruption in their documents in order not to offend their clients. A lot has changed, not only in Nigeria, but the globe all over, that the issue of corruption is now front and center. Before, let's say 2016, many countries looked at it as a southern problem, which means countries in the southern hemisphere, that it was a poor country's problem, until they saw that the proceeds of corruption were making their way back into organized crime, including terrorist financing. And then they woke up. So at the 2016 London Anti-Corruption Summit, for instance, they finally agreed that there was a need for countries like the UK and so on to do something about corruption, because if they don't stem it wherever it's coming from, it's coming back to haunt them where they are as well. Now, what has changed? Apart from the awareness, very practical things are now changing in a place like Nigeria, where in the area of trade, which was really very murky, now you can bring a vessel to Nigeria and clear your vessel through all the government processes and leave Nigeria's waters without paying a penny in bribes. It is possible. So we've seen that to happen. The Nigerian Stock Exchange also has made the issue of corruption, the issue of governance, an important indicator in the corporate governance rating system. And for companies that are rated and are listed on the premium board of the exchange, they have to maintain this rating in order to be listed in the premium board. So the issue of corruption, the issue and the need for transparency, better disclosures and so on is now front and center in the discourse of business in Nigeria.
When you, Dr. Christopher Kolade, who was then in Cadbury, an elder and well-respected, put together the Convention on Business Integrity, and he was the chairman of the occasion and was sitting at the head of the table. You were there as well, a much younger man you were yourself back then. 25, 26 years ago, was all about business integrity and ethical practices in the private sector. Let's talk about that. Where are we? Do you think we can really ground and make sustainable integrity in business in the private sector environment?
Maybe I should describe what works. What we have found over the years that works is that you need some kind of business ombudsman and you need a high-level reporting system. What does that mean? For example, in the maritime sector that I'm using as my example, we found that if, first of all, between 2012 and now, the agencies there and the private sector have defined standard operating procedures. Where those operating procedures are flaunted, there is a grievance reporting mechanism. That mechanism is working because at the top of the agencies concerned, they have enough will to actually come down on the officers, rank and file, who are choosing not to live up to the standard operating procedures. So we now have a very practical way of helping business integrity to form. And we're now looking at, is it possible to move away from vessel clearance and apply the same thing to cargo clearance? This is catching the imagination of many more countries. So Ghana was here recently to understudy the Nigeria Shippers Council that is housing these arrangements to see why are things changing in Nigeria? Because things are changing. And let me give it to you in statistics. About 264 incidents 2019, 121 incidents 2020. In 2021 so far, there's only been 27 corruption incidents with vessels who are trying to clear through. And we're looking at, is it possible to replicate the same thing in cargo clearance? Or can we do it in service delivery generally? When you're dealing with FIRS or dealing with NAFDAC or dealing with Standards Organization of Nigeria, is it possible for Nigerians to insist on standard operating procedures where they're not followed? Is it possible to escalate the issue with the assurance that there will be a consequence? And is there a consequence management system in place? Because if you have this as the pieces of the jigsaw in place, then we have found that you can actually have measurable integrity.
The public service is one place in Nigeria we look at the word integrity as one major issue of fault line. So you're talking about the maritime sector, and which is very good news. So what about governance?
Okay, so let me attempt to define what business integrity would look like away from morality and away from ethics and into the realm of practicality. It would mean that people are doing things right and they are doing the right things. So how can you get people to do the right things and do it the right way for the right reasons? That is the challenge behind business integrity. So if our governance, all of the government departments involved in governance are doing the right things and doing things right, we will see professionalism, we will see an improvement in excellence, we will see service delivery improved. So the only way to do it actually is to get business, private sector, and business, government, and civil society to sit together, agree these standard operating procedures, agree how we escalate issues when it is not working, and how we insist on compliance and also a consequence management system when things are not being done right. So if an officer is not doing the right thing, there should be sanctions. If it is the person from the private sector or civil society that's doing the wrong thing, they should also be sanctioned. It's the absence of sanctions that encourage the level of impunity that we're seeing in our governance. And we have to take it a piece at a time. It's like the Yoruba adage says, how do you eat moi moi that is in the leaf? You start from the flat end and you take it piece by piece, and that is how you do it. So we can actually replicate it in our service delivery and governance.
Thank you so much, and do have a restful night. See you next time on the show. Soji Apampa, CEO and founder, co-founder of a Convention on Business Integrity. Thank you so much for your time today.